Welcome back to the Christ in Culture. This is Clint.
And this is Gordon.
And we are so excited to be back with you guys. We tried this once already. Totally botched the first time through.
Yeah.
You would think after...
Not only through technical difficulties, but human difficulties.
Yeah, we're struggling. And part of that is we kind of had a bit of an off week. Kind of an off week, more like an off 4 days. To celebrate your bachelor party.
Yes.
Which we can now announce was in Austin,
Texas.
Yeah, that was a blast.
Yes, it was fantastic.
Yeah. So, yeah. When we talk about what we did, yeah. We ate food.
We
played games. You guys drank beer.
We drank beer.
I watched you drink beer.
You watched us drink beer.
We went to some cool breweries, too.
Went to a cool brewery.
Well,
I guess those weren't breweries.
Oh, you're right. That was just a cool
we went
bar.
to some cool restaurants, too.
Yeah. What was the brewery called?
The brewery is called Jester King. The best brewery I've been to. And I keep saying will have ever gone to. I feel like that would be different if I've gone to like a Trappist brewery in Germany. But
yeah, Trappist.
It was just a farm, and like for being in tech, just being in the States, like a brewery to that scale, and one that like wants their beers to be funky and have like stuff in them and that to spread, and that to just be like of earth table to farm beers was fantastic.
Yeah.
We were just guys in the middle of the woods staring at stars and talking about like transhumanism and robots. And
it was such a weird conversation. But yeah, it was a load of fun. I would say if you guys ever go, if you're ever in Austin, and we would recommend going. I don't even drink, and I had a good time.
Yes.
I would say go. If you go, make sure you go early enough you can like actually walk around.
Make it like a half day.
Yeah.
If we were there for 4 hours, I think easily, if you went with people that do drink, people that don't, if you take some things to do while you're there, you could take a Frisbee. Yeah. You have a field. You could do some crazy things.
There's people playing Ultimate.
Yeah. But I would plan for like 5 hours of just like going. One thing we didn't do until too late, but like hiking, like you could walk around this entire farm and just see things and just enjoy it.
And they have goats.
They have goats. They have a cat.
Yeah. It was fun. Good stuff. I would recommend. But we also, since we talked about your, well, not your wedding, but your bachelor party.
Bachelor party?
This episode is coming out on the 30th. Yes, the 30th. Which means it is the day before Advent, which means it's the last day of the liturgical year, and it's also the day of our friend's wedding, David and Annalisa. So we'll be celebrating that up as you guys are checking out the show.
You're becoming one person.
Yes. David's also my boss. I think you guys, if you've listened to from the beginning, you've heard us give him plenty of shout-outs on the show before. Actually, for a while, I don't know if you knew this. This was before you even came on. My laptop crashed mid-episode one time.
Been there.
And, well, it was so old that it couldn't process recording a full episode. So it would just, like, shut down every time we recorded. And so we panicked because I couldn't get a laptop that fast. And so we used David's for a couple of weeks while we were kind of transitioning. So shout out to the glory days of the beginning when we had no equipment.
This is a great transition.
It is. Transition to what, Gordon?
Transition into that. What we do is spread our like something that isn't something we've created. It's more of just like our true desires in our heart point us to God, whether it's someone of faith, whether it's someone that's not, or anything like that. Everything we desire, whether it's like I desire to watch Netflix right now, is because you're desiring something beautiful and entertaining.
Right. Ultimately, every desire that we have is a desire for God.
Exactly.
And just sometimes that desire gets distorted with other things. And so on the show, we take a look at those desires, especially in culture, and the way that we see those desires becoming active or becoming a reality. We look at those things and we see how that brings us back to God. And ultimately, that comes down to helping us understand our relationship with God, but also is a tool for evangelization.
Yeah.
And so if you're new to the show, check out some of our episodes in kind of the middle of season 2, I think. We had quite a few guests on where we talked about different stuff like that. So if that is something that people are interested in supporting, so we can get better equipment and not have to worry about those
not
things.
have a computer that crashes just in trying to record an episode.
Gordon, how can they do that?
We have a Patreon at patreon.com/The Christ in Culture, where you can, as little as $5 a month, that's like a Starbucks coffee once a month.
Yeah.
And you can be a part of, well, actually, we have one more spot available, 2 more spots available. I don't know, for 5 exclusive episodes that we have still haven't finished recording, some of them.
Yeah.
But that will only go out to the first 5 patrons.
Mm-hmm.
And if you want access to those episodes or the future episodes, or you actually, one of those episodes would be your idea and your content, you can do that.
Exclusive
and then just
merch.
other small things of merch. It's not like that's to entice you. It's more of like a thank you.
Yeah, for sure.
For offering your heart in this. And if you don't know anything about us besides what Clint just said, then you can find us at Facebook or Twitter at thechristinculture.com, or Twitter's at ontheadventure2.
Or our website, thechristinculture.com. You can find the show. You can find stuff about us, about our guests. You can learn about everyone who's been on the show. And you can also see the blog. Or you can check out our videos at YouTube, which is just The Christ in Culture. So,
and if you can't give, this is the last thing, and we'll step off our soapbox. If you can't give, and that's hard, but you do want to be a part of this, and you're like, sounds awesome, and I actually have ideas. We're looking for people to help out with the blog, actually.
Yeah.
And if you're like,
that'd be awesome.
I could maybe do that, but I don't know what that means. Well, go to the website. There's a little tab to contact us and reach out to us, and we can tell you what that means.
For sure. Perfect. So with that, the next segment that we always do is the current media. So what have you been taking in?
Well, I think the most recent current media when this comes out will be Thanksgiving. Okay, we're recording this on Tuesday. We said it's coming out on David's and Alice's wedding. Today is actually mine and Lizzie's anniversary in like dating years. So this is our second anniversary, 2 years.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Well, did you think it was longer or shorter?
No, I just didn't think about it at all, I guess.
It just is something.
It just is. It's like, oh my gosh, they have an anniversary.
That's one thing. The other thing is, so this is Tuesday in the week of Thanksgiving. Thanksgiving is 2 days from now on Thursday. I have already experienced 3 Thanksgivings.
Wait, for real?
For real.
Well, the Friendsgiving that we had.
Friendsgiving
and
was
2
the
more
first
on top
one.
of that?
Yeah. And then Lizzie's parish had a Thanksgiving that Sunday. And then we had a Thanksgiving with our youth group on Thursday. I have Thanksgiving tomorrow with Lizzie's family. And then Thanksgiving on Thursday with Lizzie's family. And then I have a Friendsgiving on Saturday.
Oh my gosh. Dude, you're going to weigh as much as I do by the time
I'm already over Thanksgiving food.
Wait, what?
And I ate Thanksgiving leftovers today. And I've had so much turkey and stuffing and mac and cheese.
Dude,
and
send it my way.
Just go to the Mattlers. There's so much food.
Okay, we'll do.
So that's one thing. Happy Thanksgiving. This is technically our Thanksgiving episode. We always do one. This is our 3rd Thanksgiving episode.
Yeah. Although it wasn't specifically targeted towards that, but yeah, it is. It is
sort of
Thanksgiving week. There you go.
Thanksgiving week. End of the new year. No, but for real, let's see. I've taken in a ton of games we talked about. We played a ton of games over the weekend. It was the biggest thing. And then yesterday, I watched Frozen 2.
Which you said was really good.
Yeah, if you've ever... I don't know if I mentioned on the podcast, but if you know me, or maybe I've mentioned the podcast, I don't know, anyone that does know, you want to like say, like, I've said that before, and can figure out what episode, then, like, I'll give you a major shout-out. I loathe Frozen 1.
Oh, really?
I think it is a terrible movie. It's just not good.
I think it's overplayed. I didn't think it was bad.
I didn't like it. I thought it was predictable and unnecessary.
It's Disney. Everything's predictable.
I've heard that argument before. But as far as I know, Frozen 1 doesn't exist, and Frozen 2 is Frozen 1. It's everything Frozen 1 wasn't, and it's phenomenal.
Great.
But the more I thought, well, actually, I'm not going to say this. I'm not going to, I'm editing.
Yeah, you're editing.
Close your ears. As far as I'm concerned, it's kind of a Moana story, so I don't know how much I like it. Okay. So once you watch it, and we actually do an episode on this, because I'd love to talk about this, but there's something to it that I don't want to like say because it would might make you like biased.
Okay.
And that's about it.
Okay, that makes sense. I mean, we had a lot of board games, I guess.
I said that earlier. I said I played a bunch of games over the weekend.
Okay, yeah. Great. My media. Okay, so number 1, Ruby, season 7. So Ruby is an American anime show.
Okay. Oh, yeah. I think we talked about this before. You watched it.
Yeah, I mentioned it, I think, all the way back
a while
when
ago.
Leah Murphy was on back in July. So season 7, which is the newest season, just came out, and we're about 3 episodes in, and it's phenomenal. So I've been watching that with my roommate. The next thing, also 3 episodes in, is The Mandalorian.
Oh my gosh! I want to know everything, but I don't want to know anything at the same time.
Baby Yoda.
I know about Baby Yoda.
Okay,
Baby Yoda is the best Star Wars character to date.
I've had so many like debates, just like geeking out with lore and trying to figure out this Baby Yoda situation. But we'll be talking about it more. I want to give people a chance to watch it.
See, and the thing was,
before I freak.
Maybe I was wrong. Maybe this was on me. I thought when they were announcing The Mandalorian, like when they first announced it, that the guy who's from Spider-Man Far From Home,
John
the one that wrote it,
he's the director.
Or director. I thought he was saying this movie was going to be placed between 4, 5, and 6, and 7, 8, 9. But now it is. Is it? So it's not Baby Yoda then?
No.
It's a Baby Yoda race.
So here's... Okay.
No, you can't tell me anything.
This isn't actually in the show. Can I give you stuff that's not in the show?
Fantastic.
Okay, so this is lore, okay? All of you Star Wars geeks out there, you can check me on this. So, to date, no one knows the race of Yoda.
Right.
So, they call it the Yoda species just because no one knows what it is. Even within the world, it was a mysterious thing. In the Star Wars universe, at least the canon, there's only 2 members of that species until now. Yoda and then Yodel, or Yaddle, or something like that. It's Yaddle, who was another Jedi Master around the time of the Clone Wars. She was on the council, or a little before. So those are the only 2 identified in the entire canon. So this is the 3rd one. No one knows where they come from. No one knows their home planet or anything. So they call it Baby Yoda because
it looks like Yoda.
It looks like Yoda, and there's no other terminology for it.
Okay, that's what I thought, but I was confused.
We don't know a name, so it's what you call him. That's all I'm going to give away until people have had a chance to watch it. So Mandalorian, then I finished Clone Wars, which was phenomenal, and so I started watching Star Wars Resistance, which is the little kid animated one cartoon. Not a huge fan of it yet, but hopefully it gets better. And then I've been reading / listening to talks by Scott Hahn on his book, The Lamb's Supper. Mm-hmm. I'm giving a talk on Revelation and the Mass coming up pretty soon.
Nice.
So I'm preparing for that. And then I've been listening to DJ Earworm. Do you know him?
That sounds very familiar, but...
So his thing is he's famous for doing mashups of pop songs. Okay. So every December, he'll take the top songs of the year, mash them together, and it'll be like a highlight of the year. He did a mashup of the decade, since it's the end of the decade. So I've been listening to his one for the decade and then all of his for the year.
That's cool.
Yeah. So that's really all I've been taking in.
Sweet.
Oh, and what you told me to watch for this episode, which is JoJo Rabbit.
JoJo Rabbit. Yeah. JoJo Rabbit is this topic. It's something I was going to do the last time we recorded. I just didn't have it prepped because sometimes prepping is hard. Yeah. But yeah, JoJo Rabbit is, what is it? Taika Waititi?
Yeah, Taika?
Taika.
I could have totally botched that. I don't know.
Taika Waititi. He's from New Zealand. He's a comedian who made What We Do in the Shadows. It's a vampire mockumentary, and then really made it when he did Thor Ragnarok.
Yeah, he was Korg
And he wrote and directed it.
Oh, yeah, that too.
He's the reason Thor is funny.
It was hilarious.
Yeah. And this is another movie of his that just came out this year in October on World War II. And it's through the lens of a boy who is growing up in the Hitler Youth. And
completely brainwashed.
Yeah. And his imaginary friend is Hitler. Adolf Hitler. Yeah, and just like a coming of age story without the aging type thing.
Yeah, kind of.
I mean, yeah, in a way, like he doesn't grow up. Like it's within like the same so many months or year.
Yeah, and it's kind of a dark comedy.
It's a dark comedy for sure.
Yeah, because you see even from the very first scene, like Hitler as an imaginary friend is hilarious, but it also addresses like some very important and big topics too. Yeah, which is what we're going to be talking about.
Let's jump in. Characters. We always do this just to help you guys out. We have JoJo. Oh, what's his name? JoJo Betsna. Yes, JoJo Betsna. My name is JoJo Betsna. So we have JoJo Betsna, who is he 9?
He's 10.
10 years old, and he's just a German boy. Yep, there you go. We have Adolf, JoJo's imaginary friend. Now, I do want to draw a very important distinction. It is in every aspect of looking like Adolf Hitler, but the fact that it's an imaginary friend, this is JoJo's like presumption of Adolf.
Yes.
And with JoJo's thoughts and assumptions and all these things. So that's really important. We have Rebel Wilson from Pitch Perfect.
Pitch Perfect.
Yeah. And she plays Fräulein Rom, who's just kind of a sidekick to Sam Rockwell and Alfie Allen. Alfie Allen's actually from Game of Thrones. Captain Klinzendorf is Sam Rockwell, and Finkel, his sidekick, among other things.
He's hilariously stupid.
And they just, all three are like a part of the German side of the war, but also not because of their inability to really do anything. And they're stupid. So they really just run like a camp for the Hitler youth.
Kids, yeah.
Oh, man. We have Scarlett Johansson, who plays JoJo's mother. Her name is Rosie.
She's amazing.
She's phenomenal. Lizzie actually said when she saw this movie, she's always seen certain movies where she's like, that's what I want like our family to be. But she's never seen a movie where she's like, that's how I want to be as a mother.
Yeah.
Until this movie. And she's like, that's how I want to be as a mother.
Yeah, Scarlett Johansson just absolutely knocked it out of the park.
Yeah,
it's
and
phenomenal.
And Taika Waititi's version of a mom and like what it means to be like a strong like leader.
Yeah.
Was great.
Yeah.
I think that was fantastic. JoJo has one good friend, Yorkie. And then
he's so goofy.
And then we have Elsa. We'll actually get to Elsa a little bit later.
Not the one from Frozen.
Not the one from Frozen. Not the one
Different
from
Elsa.
Frozen.
I know you're in there. Oh, that actually,
to the unknown.
That actually applies. Wow, that's phenomenal. We should.
Okay, so the movie starts out with JoJo staring at himself in the mirror, and he just says, like, JoJo Betsla, 10 years old. Today you join the ranks of the Jungvolk, a very special training weekend. It's going to be intense. Today you become a man, which when Clint was rewatching this last night, and I watched it like a week or so ago, it's just interesting because JoJo is 10 years old, but he's trying to be, seems like he's 25 or older. And this is a comedy, so everything in this movie is purposely stretched and exaggerated, but it is like a truth that was told to the kids of that time.
Yeah.
And you said that was very opposite.
Yeah, I think that is very opposite of the Generation Z that we see growing up now, where in some ways we are forcing the youth nowadays to grow up, I would say, academically faster, because there's so much more they have to learn, or even in athletics and stuff like that. Like, that's where forcing them to grow up. But in regards to responsibilities and lives and stuff like that, we're not. We actually see they're not driving.
Yeah.
They're not dating. Or they're not getting jobs, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So we see a bunch of research showing that. So it's just kind of interesting to see a comparison between their generation, which was forced to grow up because of the war, where they were forced to grow up and join the military or get jobs and stuff, all to support the war effort. Whereas nowadays the focus is more on the academics or the sports and stuff like that.
Yeah. And then you slowly see that his imaginary friend is pacing behind him, and that's, how if you don't know anything about the movie, you see it's Adolph, and he turns to Adolph and says, like, I don't think I can do this.
What? Of course you can. Sure, you're a little bit scrawny and a bit unpopular, and you can't tie your shoelaces even though you're 10 years old, but you're still the bestest, most loyal little Nazi I've ever met. Not to mention the fact you're really good looking. So you're going to get out there, and we're going to have a great time, okay?
Okay.
That's the spirit.
And this, I really like this because 2 episodes ago with the Peanut Butter Falcon episode, we talked about like identity and like bringing someone back to themselves, and that happens through encounter of someone else and the encounter of them like telling you like that's not who you are, this is who you truly are.
Mm-hmm.
But what's funny is the encounter he's having isn't with someone else, it's with himself.
Right, and it's not even just with himself, it's with this like this brainwashed aspect of himself.
Yeah, so like what we were talking about earlier was like Adolph as an imaginary friend is like your conscience, or like the voice, the picture of like the devil and the angel on the side of your shoulders.
Yeah.
And as Adolph, that's clearly the wrong side feeding into him.
Mm-hmm.
But he only has one imaginary friend, so he doesn't have this like angel. Well, that technically would be Rosie, but that's like a real person.
Yeah.
But something that came to mind was, so this is very serious, and it was something I actually wanted to bring up, but I don't want to like delve too much off topic. This past weekend, while we were in Austin, here in Houston, there was a brewery that held a black mass.
Yeah.
And for those that don't know anything about that, that's like they had a satanic temple here in Houston come perform a black mass, which is a mockery of the modern mass. They purposely change Latin so it's like defacing Mary and certain things, but they also obtain a consecrated host and deface it.
So, update on that. I don't know if this is accurate or not, but supposedly the host was not actually consecrated.
Okay.
And they bought it online and thought the consecration happened when you eat it, and that was the consecration.
Okay.
I don't know if that's true or not, but I saw an exchange between some of the people that were there and some Catholics. So, either way,
no, but
hopefully that's the case.
Either way, because of this event, I've just had some very interesting conversations lately.
Yeah.
With that, like me and Lizzie, and then like me and Chris. And one thing me and Chris talked about today, when I stepped away from the church, I researched tons of religions just to figure out like what I believed. And a few of those were obscure religions. One was voodoo, which is a very interesting cultural religion. One was Satanism. And there's this sect of Satanism where if you actually study its history, it doesn't come from the fact of like Jesus or God and Satan, but actually comes from this book that's written, which is fictional. Completely based on fiction. It's a story of like the evergoing war with angels and stuff, but it's not like a factual book. And me and Lizzie, one thing we talked about with this thing happening in the brewery was like if you looked at every sign, it was exactly the way Satan would do it. They were selling tickets to the event. One was a general admission. The other was a VIP experience for $666. You get your own black coat. Like, what other way to make this like joke of an event?
Mm-hmm.
But the thing is like they were selling money and awareness for animals, like for vets, not people but animals. And then the other thing is like when I listen to a podcast on Satanism, what people think it stands for is the underdog. These people who are a little bit scrawny, a little bit unpopular, who can't tie their shoelaces,
even though they're 10 years old. But
you can still get out there because this is for you. This is something, and I think it's interesting that like the difference between Shia LaBeouf telling the other character that he could be a wrestler because he actually could is different than saying like because of your imperfections all these false truths are still true, and you can still like can you better phrase that for me?
Correct me if I'm wrong. What you're trying to say is like in the Peanut Butter Falcon, they admitted there were things that they were not able to do, but still supported each other in what they could do.
Yes.
Whereas in this situation, Adolph is all gung-ho about saluting him and just making sure that JoJo is the best
you don't have
little
to
Nazi.
do anything. But
yeah.
You could still
just like
heil me.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. He gave him false hope. And there's even lines in here, I'm assuming you'll get to it eventually, where they're like, yeah, we're losing the war, but you might as well join us anyways. And it's just like, this is where you need to be. And it's all these things where it's just like, they know that what they're doing is wrong and ridiculous. And that they make that apparent because, like you said, it's a comedy. They exaggerate. And they're trying to convince these kids and brainwash these kids, come do it anyways.
Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
And so rather than saying, hey, yeah, there are some things that you can't do, but wrestling isn't one of those things. You can do that. Not because it's a lie, but because it's true.
You have the gifts and the talents to do that.
Whereas in this movie, there's like things that they realize, man, you can't do this, but come do it anywames.
Yeah.
It's kind of the opposite. Is that what you're trying to get at?
Sort of.
Okay.
I mean, it's more of like actually with that religion of Satan and in that voice, he's saying, like I said, when I say the underdogs, and this is such a sticky topic. I'm saying, the things where people think that like Catholics hate those people.
Oh.
Satan's saying you're welcome too, and it's not like we hate anybody. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's what I was really trying to get at with like this thing of like, we're not trying to knock anyone down, but in that lie where it seems that way, Satan builds you up and brings you into something. And that's kind of where that's kind of what seems like he's doing this conversation now.
Yeah.
But yeah, you just alluded kind of the next thing. So he goes to this camp where they get to experience what it's like to be a German soldier. Well, if you're a male. And yeah, so you just kind of said it, like over the next day or two, you little critters get to experience some of the things that the mighty German army goes through every day. And even though it would appear our country is on the back front and there really isn't much hope for winning the war, apparently we're doing just fine. And that's like the movie. Like they're numb to the truth that they're going to lose. We should pull out now. Yeah, and all these things. And so they start like as 10-year-olds learning how to wield a knife. And if you lose that knife, like you are like nobody. I don't know what that knife could like symbolize, but like that knife is your identity.
Yeah, and I mean this isn't specifically tied into the knife, but another thing they talk about at this camp and throughout the movie is how to identify a Jew.
Yes.
Which is
I love those conversations.
Right. They're so ridiculous. But the point is, like, maybe not in the same way, but we've talked about it on here before, especially I think in the early days when it was season 1 and it was Steve and I talking about the other. We did an episode on scapegoating, right? Where you identify someone who is weaker and you target them and you consider them other and you dehumanize them so that you yourself can avoid responsibility for something. And that's exactly what happens, obviously, in the Holocaust. But we see that over-exaggerated in this movie where they're saying all these folk tales about the Jews, how they have horns and they are their brains are run by little devils in their heads and they're scaly because they're descended from lizards and stuff like that. Like all these ridiculous things. They smell like Brussels sprouts, and that's how you can identify them. All these like really, really crazy things which make them seem less human. And then there's even one conversation between JoJo and Elsa where he says that she's not human. She's just a Jew.
Right.
And as stupid as that sounds, like those are real things that were said during the Holocaust. And there's people that still say those things today. And to a certain extent, when I'm not saying this is an exact comparison, but when we scapegoat or when we make people quote unquote other, when we see them as different than ourselves, we do that same thing to a lesser extent. We're pushing people away because they're a little bit different, or we're treating them like less, as if they're less valuable.
Yeah, and we haven't said this yet, but Elsa, so he comes home from this weekend for learning like all these false things, but actually, well, he comes home early because he nearly killed himself.
He stole a grenade, threw it, and ended up almost blowing himself to death.
He practically did. Comes home early, and he walks home when his mom's not home and discovers Elsa.
I want to point out the reason why he stole the grenade, by the way, is because the imaginary Hitler, told him it was a good idea to prove himself.
Yes.
So there's another thing to support your idea.
Yeah. And he ends up going home early, and he meets Elsa, who is this girl who seems to be hiding in her house.
Mm-hmm.
And she's like, they confront, he's scared because he's someone else. Subconsciously he kind of knows what it is, but he doesn't, because like you said, all the times they're like, how would you know if you spot a Jew? Like, they look just like us, which I think is super important.
Mm-hmm.
That they look just like us, but it's always that they have horns, they smell weird. And so he's running away, and then she like grabs him, and she's like, what am I? And he's like, I don't know. He's like, you know what I am,
say it,
just say it. He's like, you're a Jew. And that's when he realizes there's a Jew living in his house, but he doesn't tell anyone right away. Or he goes to, and she threatens, like, if he tells, your mom would get caught, you would get caught, I would get caught, and we would all die. Do you want that to happen? And obviously he loves his mom, so he doesn't want that to happen. So that's really important, because the whole movie is about this. The whole movie, after the funny little intro and the funny thing, is like, okay, I'm 10 years old. I want to be an adult who it reigns for Hitler, which means that Jews must go. There's a Jew hiding in my house, which means either she's hiding in my house, my mom doesn't know, and I can't tell my mom because she also wants to live for Hitler and she'd be mad at me, or my mom is hiding a Jew in the house, which means...
And will be executed.
Yeah. And it's clearly the latter. But there's a conversation, and I don't know what can be taken away from this, right before he throws that grenade. JoJo is actually made fun of from his peers at this camp, from these people that he wants to like walk alongside,
mm-hmm.
because he can't like kill anything. He doesn't have the guts, because he is this compassionate kid. He's only 10 years old. And they call him JoJo Rabbit because they want to kill a rabbit and he can't. And Adolph says, I'll let you in on a little secret. The rabbit is no coward. When they're calling you a rabbit, it's not a coward. The humble little bunny faces dangerous world every day, hunting carrots for his family, for his country. My empire will be full of all animals: lions, giraffes, zebras, rhinoceroses, octopuses, rhinoctopuses, even the mighty rabbit. And like I said, I don't really know. I think that's more of just a foreshadowing, in the sense of the rabbit is no coward, and JoJo, in its true essence, JoJo is like the cowardly lion, in the sense that he's not cowardly, but he actually shows the true essence of courage. And that the humble bunny faces dangerous world every day. That is the world he's growing up in, where he's told these lies, and yet he's actively hiding a Jew. Yeah. And so hunting a carrot for his family is actively hiding a Jew in the midst of dying for it. So he takes this, like the rabbit, to the people that are believing the same fake Adolf, the same voice that's weak, that's what weakness is. He doesn't know it yet, but he innately, just like with the covenants and things that are written on our hearts, these laws that aren't things we follow but are actually like a part of us.
Yeah.
He innately knows that like this is more true than the camp I just left.
And we see that in his hesitation in a few of his conversations afterwards, where he's hesitantly asking people, like, hypothetically, if I were to find a Jew, what should I do?
Yeah.
And they would tell him and stuff, and he comes back to her and offers like a proposition and stuff, where they kind of work things out. And they end up becoming friends. Sorry, spoiler alert. But that's pretty predictable, I think. There's a lot of like really funny conversations after that first interaction between JoJo and Adolph, but they're mostly just funny and ridiculous.
Yeah, and they're mostly because Adolph really is noticing, his imaginary friend is noticing that he's becoming friends with Elsa.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, what are you doing? And every time he tells him what he's doing, his long game plan, Adolph's kind of like, oh, I didn't think of that. That's a good idea. But I also don't like what you're doing. Be careful. Don't do that.
Yeah.
And one thing that I love, and you've mentioned this, he's brainwashed.
Mm-hmm.
But one thing that they keep referencing is that Jews have the power to brainwash you.
Yeah, to brain control.
Mind control.
Yeah.
They have mind control. And it's like Hitler had mind control. Like the Reich were controlled by his speeches, controlled by this movement, and just believed these lies because he raised kids from their youth to adulthood to say this is bad. And yet he's one of the things they were saying was like they have mind control, stay as far away from the enemy.
Yeah, so there's this conversation between the two of them, Adolph and JoJo, where Adolph says, there's no reason this thing in the attic needs to ruin your life. In fact, you could use it to your advantage. JoJo's like, how? Adolph says, when someone tries to use mind powers on me, know what I do? I use mind powers back on them. What I mean is this. Make her feel safe, and then she'll drop her guard. And then you will be the one in control. And JoJo's like, reverse psychology. Adolph's like, don't complicate things. Just use my backward mind power trick, and everything will be fine.
Actually, this reminds me of something very serious. My first girlfriend, I was a junior in high school. She was emotionally manipulative in very terrible ways. I thought I was head over heels in love because I didn't know what love was, and those are the words she used. I was like, yes. And then all these things to the point where we went on multiple breaks through this year to year and a half relationship. And every time we went on a break, come to find out, I didn't find out till years later, she would message other guys. Because we were on break, right?
Sure.
But those guys being like if you and I were friends like we are friends now, she would message you. And this is how I found out years later because my friends finally told me.
Yeah.
And this is what she did. She told me after we started it was only like 3 days to a week of a break. When we got back together after our break, doing air quotes, she would be like, hey, this person messaged me. It made me feel uncomfortable. Can you confront them and tell me to leave me alone? And she would tell them that I knew about what they were doing and that they needed to avoid me. To the point where I would call them, tell them leave me alone, and then the rest of our time ever, we would see each other and then avoid each other. And I think that's what this, the essence of telling people that the Jews have mind control keeps them from getting too close to a Jew to realize they're just a person.
Exactly. Yeah. No, that's exactly it. I don't know if there's much to bring out here, but one thing we haven't mentioned so far is that JoJo's dad isn't directly in the picture.
Mm-hmm.
We learn from some of the other people that he's in the military, but apparently ran away or is dead. We're not really sure what's the case. And in this conversation where JoJo and Rosie are having dinner, he hurts her pretty bad by saying, I'm stuck here with you and Dad's out there fighting and doing all this good. And she's like, you want your dad? And he's like, yeah. And they yell back and forth a little bit. And she gets up and walks over to the fireplace and takes ash, smears it across her face like a beard.
Best motherly move. And
she, in a very emotional way, role plays both the father
and the mother.
But it's like the father freaks out at JoJo for talking back to his mother like that. And then
the mother,
Rosie,
freaks out at the dad.
Freaks out at the dad and makes... She's talking to herself,
right,
playing both characters, but she convinces the dad to come back and apologize to the son, and then they all dance together. And this idea of dancing is something that's really big throughout the movie, which we haven't talked about yet.
We have not, and we should. Let's go ahead and do it.
Let's do it. I don't think we've gotten to the part yet, but there's a scene where...
Well, I don't think they address it in that moment, but I mean, in that moment you're talking about. But she starts dancing with the dad or herself, and then she's like, "JoJo, come dance with me," and he's kind of reluctant at first, and she's like, "Come dance," because I don't know if she says it, but you kind of notice she wants to because it's freeing. Mm-hmm. It's freeing.
She says it later,
okay,
in a different scene. So she starts dancing in the street later on.
That's right.
And JoJo's like, "Why are you always dancing?" And she's like, "Dancing is what you do when you're free."
Yeah. And then he poses the same question to Elsa. He says, what's the first thing you would do when you get your freedom? And she says, dance. And there is something to that. Dancing is weird. Dancing is weird in the sense of if you're thinking about everyone that's around you and you're just assuming they're looking at you, you don't want to do anything. But if you're just like listening to the music and you're just moving your body in a way that you think this is just like, that's just what the music is doing to you, then you forget that there's people around you. You forget that there's anything, and it does for you. It takes you away from this world that you're in and into just pure bliss and joy.
Yeah. I don't know. That gets back to what how we were describing the show at the beginning of the episode, you know, when we were talking about just like getting to those transcendentals, the good, the true, and the beautiful. I guess you could make arguments saying that there's truth in dancing, but the idea that you're just like, you're engaging in something that is so beautiful that it moves you to do something.
Yeah.
That's God acting, you know? And that's part of what we mean by the transcendentals.
And I just had a eureka moment, which I didn't even connect. JoJo meeting Elsa. Elsa is like dance for JoJo.
How so?
Because, so when they meet Elsa, JoJo decides, one thing we haven't talked about, decides to write a book about Jews. Because everyone he knows doesn't know how to identify a Jew. And so he's if I can write this book, I can figure out how to identify Jews. Well, Elsa knows what he's doing, so she's lying to him. She's like, well, obviously we love money. And we have horns. They're under our hair. And, one thing people don't know is we're allergic to food, biscuits, cheese. Meats. And like, because she's hungry. But then she's like, don't you have any friends? And he's like, yeah, I have York, but do you? She's like, I have Nathan. And Nathan, you've come to find out, she was engaged to Nathan. Mm-hmm. And he used to send letters, but she couldn't get the letters. So JoJo fakes this letter of Nathan to get to her because he's a Nazi. He's not a Nazi, but he's a kid that wants to be a Nazi. Of Nathan breaking up with her. And she gets offended and like starts to cry and like leaves. So he writes another letter as Nathan saying he didn't mean to write that and that he's sorry and all these things. And this is when you realize like JoJo kind of has a heart. He is a rabbit. He is caring, but communicating and trying to write this book with Elsa is freeing the captivity of his brainwashed heart. Mm-hmm. She is danced to the sense of realizing what it means to be human, to the point where when she realizes what JoJo's doing because of a secret about Nathan, and that JoJo made up those letters, and tells him that you're going to find love one day. That's what love is. And he's like, no, I'm not. And he's talking to his mom later, and she's like...
It's the very next day, yeah.
Yeah, and she's like, you're going to find someone special. And he's like, why does everyone keep telling me that? And then she's like... He's like, it's a stupid idea. And she's like, you're stupid. Love is the strongest thing in the world. I think you'll find that metal is the strongest thing in the world, followed closely by dynamite, and then muscles. Besides, I wouldn't even know if I saw it. And Rosie's like, surprise, surprise, your shoelaces are undone again. And she goes and ties shoelaces. She goes, oh, JoJo, you know when it happens. You feel it. It's a pain. In my heart, I bet. In your tummy. Like you're full of butterflies. Yuck. Yeah, yuck. Now come on, get a move on. And then you realize she's like tied the shoelaces together to play with them. But I think that's important. It goes back to, the virtues, faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. Mm-hmm. Love is the strongest thing in the world. But she doesn't say it's easy or it's joyful. She said it's a pain. Mm-hmm. It's this thing that makes us feel uncomfortable. Like this, like butterflies in our stomach isn't painful, but it is just like you want to throw up. Love is dying on the cross.
Yeah.
And sacrificing what you think you know for something else. And that's what JoJo's experiencing at freaking 10 years old, through the dance of conversation and the dance of relational ministry.
The following scene is one we were just talking about too, with the dance. So they're kind of like riding their bikes home, and Rosie's kind of just saying, you're growing up too fast. 10-year-olds shouldn't be celebrating wars, talking politics. You should be climbing trees and then falling out of those trees. And JoJo says, but the fur says when we win, it is us, the young boys, who will rule the world. She kind of just like scoffs at that and says, the Reich is dying. You're going to lose the war. And then what are you going to do? Life is a gift. We must celebrate it. We have to dance to show God we are grateful to be alive. And JoJo says, well, I won't dance. Dancing is for people who don't have a job. And that's where Rosie says, like we were saying before, dancing is for people who are free. It's an escape from all this. And JoJo says, well, you're free to dance your way home. And then Rosie says, all right. Oh, no, you don't. No one can stop me.
Mm-hmm.
This idea of like, no one can stop me from dancing. No one can stop me from being free. And no one can stop me from showing God that I appreciate this gift of life. And can I spoil it?
Go ahead.
Okay. We see that.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, huge spoiler alert. She sacrifices herself. No one can stop her celebrating her life and celebrating the lives of others and living it to the fullest, because she's trying to rescue not just Elsa, but she's part of this greater rebellion, this resistance against the Nazi party, and she does everything she can to stop that. And ultimately she ends up paying the ultimate price. She's killed because she's caught. And even some of the Nazis at the end say, yeah, we're really sorry about your mom. Like, despite everything,
she was the best.
She was a great woman and just a great human being.
Yeah, and I think we're meeting this cusp of like coming of age through a lot of the characters. So that was a turning point where JoJo's he literally sees his mom hanging in the streets.
Yeah.
They just show it, and it's because she was secretly sending out flyers in the war. It was wrong and all these things. Yeah. And standing up for something that is good in the midst of persecution, which is a beatitude of ours.
Well, in this moment when we see, or when he sees his mother hanging in the streets, we don't even see the character. All we see is her shoes. And ironically, the only reason we knew what her shoes looked like was because she was dancing, and we saw her feet. And he just runs up to her and hugs like her legs because that's all he can reach, and he just sits there and he cries. And to me, as I kind of thought about that, it seemed very much like what you would imagine would be Mary at the foot of Jesus. So it's kind of like this role reversal in a way of, rather than the mother at the foot of the son, it's the son at the foot of the mother just weeping at the sacrifice for life.
Yeah. I don't know if it's before this or after this. Is that before the people come to his house?
That is before, yeah.
So shortly after this, he goes...
No, it's after.
It is after.
Yeah, her death is after.
So,
but
okay.
The dancing is before.
Yeah, so he's dancing, and then he goes home, and some German guards come because they want to inspect his house.
Mm-hmm.
And they're expecting it and tearing everything apart, looking for clearly Jews, and Elsa's there. And then Wilson's character comes over to like check on JoJo after the explosion, and so he's caught into the mix of things, and everyone's there. And Elsa decides in the heat of the moment, surprised to even the viewers, I'm going to go out. And she does, and she pretends to be JoJo's sister, which he actually does have a sister. Who passed away.
But no one knows that she passed away. It was kind of a secret thing.
No one knows she passed away or any kind of much about her. It's even like minimal conversation between the family itself. And Elsa knows because she lives in her room, or in the walls of her room, so she sees the photos. And so she does it. They ask her.
She said she was friends with the sister before the war started.
That's true. So they ask for her papers. She gives them the papers of what you can assume to be the sister. And this is not to the other guards. This is to not Rebel Wilson. This is
I don't know the actor's name.
The one that's running the camp, and
Captain K is his name.
Captain K, yeah, Klinzenporf or something. And he's like, "What's your birthday?" And she says it, and then they're like, "All right, you're good to go." And everyone's like, "Great," and they leave. And when they leave, JoJo's like, "Elsa, you fooled them," and she's like, "It's 7." I was like, "What?" She was born on the 7th. I said the 1st. He was helping us. They'll be back. They forget she's dead, then I'll be dead. And it's just, there's this moment now that you realize this Nazi who, through the heart of JoJo just being different and being this rabbit, even at his camp, also like realizes the truth and knowing his mother. And then shortly after this, his mother dies. And then shortly after that...
Well, can we talk about the scene right after that with Adolf?
Yeah.
So after this whole thing goes down, JoJo goes back to his room, and Adolf is like, "Man, that was a complete bust. Mind explaining that?" And JoJo's like, "She's not. She doesn't seem like a bad person." And then Adolf says, like talking about his friendship with Elsa, "To put it plainly, get your crap together and sort out your priorities. You're 10, JoJo. Start acting like it. And so he's like, this is where we see Adolph is really turning against JoJo.
Yeah, in a harsher way.
Because we're seeing JoJo is actually starting to realize she's a human being and she's not bad. She's actually good. And another spoiler alert, he even admits that he has feelings for her. And he starts feeling those butterflies that we were talking about.
Yeah.
And he starts realizing like what love is. And so in more ways than what you were describing before, Elsa does bring freedom to him because she introduces him to love.
Exactly. Which love is the greatest thing in the world. And out of love, his mom offered herself for JoJo.
It's like Harry Potter.
So then in this midst of understanding all this and realizing he does have feelings, even though there's an age gap. There's an age gap. Elsa's not his age. He goes back because Elsa says to him, like, if you ever find any more of those letters from Nathan, let me know.
Mm-hmm.
And so he writes one more. And he goes and he says, Dear Elsa, I know it's hard for you at the moment. I know you feel like giving up, but you have to carry on. Me and your good friend JoJo have devised a plan for you to escape. So please listen to him. He's going to help you get out of here. And then you can come live in Paris. And don't worry about JoJo. He'll be okay. See you in Paris, Nathan. That's when you realize Nathan's not alive anymore. She's like, he's dead. He's like, what? Nathan died the first year, tuberculosis. And JoJo's like, well, that's weird. He wrote these. But no, JoJo was willing to have her escape for her freedom and never see her again.
Yeah. Yeah.
He said, don't worry about JoJo. You'll be okay.
To kind of give some context to that, too, the Russians and the allies, so the Americans and the French and the British, they
Show
win.
up. Yeah.
They win the battle, and she's still stuck inside, not being able to go outside. He's out there, kind of part of the battle, kind of not, and he's like going around. Eventually, there's all these like troubles, and he gets arrested and almost killed, and Captain K actually ends up saving him, and then that's when he goes back to Elsa, and he walks in, and she asks, what's going on out there? And he pretends like he doesn't know what he's talking about, like, out where? She's like, outside. Tell me, JoJo, what's going on? Is it safe to come out? And he sits there and he thinks about exactly what you're saying. If I say yes, if I tell her the truth, she's going to leave and I'm not going to have her anymore and I'll be alone.
Actually, before you continue, I want to go over that scene with Captain K. Because we already touched on it in the sense where you were like, he says, Captain K. And this is like all the Nazis they're arrested from the American soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
And he's like, hey, kid, look at all this commotion, huh? And he's like, what's happening? Hysteria, my friend. We've come to an end. The party is over. Are you scared? Don't be scared. Look at me. I'm sorry about Rosie. She was a good person. And that's where we talked about it. He's like, an actual good person, okay? Like, she wasn't like one of us. She was really good. And he starts to cry. And he's like, it's okay, kid. And he's like, I mean to tell you, I think your book is really great. Yeah, I'm sorry for laughing at it. It's very creative. Come on. Come here. Let's take a look at you. As he gets closer, he's like, you look good. You're okay, kid. Now go home, look after your sister of yours, okay? And he rips off the Nazi jacket.
Knowing it's not really a sister.
Right, knowing it's not his sister, but rips off the Nazi jacket and pretends like he's a Jew. And like, hey, Jew, get away from me. But I think that's significant because this is the first time JoJo's not wearing his uniform. And that's when he runs back.
Dude!
To like, to sacrifice himself for her, to be like, hey, I'm sorry, because he even tells her the war, the Nazis won the war.
Yeah, eventually.
And then he regrets that, but he's like, his skin is different. It's
literally the peeling back from the
yeah.
Chronicles of Narnia
In a very subtle, quick moment.
Yeah. So, oh my gosh, which book is that? The Voyage of the Dawn Treader.
Voyage of the Dawn Treader.
Where
yeah.
the dragon.
He's
the dragon.
It's
and Aslan is the lion, which is Jesus, comes in and peels off the dragon scales and returns him to himself. Being a boy. And that's what's happening here.
Right.
And so for the first time, he's feeling what it's like to be a Jew, right? In the way that he's been taught to treat the Jews.
Which, as we've been saying, is just a normal, good person.
Right. But is being beaten and like he pushed him to the ground and like shoves him. And in a way, this is almost a reminder of like Christ himself, where his robes are stripped and he's beaten to the ground. Very briefly, it's not like to the same extent of the Passion, but I think there is a very brief comparison there before he returns back to the house and finds Elsa.
So he's told that the war's won, but he's faked this letter to say he's figured out a way to escape. And as they're walking down, once again, Adolph pulls him aside and he's like, "What are you doing? Like, this is a terrible idea." And he's like, "You're in love with her, aren't you?" He's like, "Yes, admit it. I just said yes. I knew it." And so Adolph, his imaginary friend knows he's defeated, so he's like, "Heil me. For the whole time's sake, just heil me a little." He's like, "No. Heil me, no." And he just says, "F off Hitler," and kicks him out the window.
Yeah.
And that's like, he's finally just like, "No, I know you're not good for me. I know what it's like for on their side. I know it's outside this uniform," and gets rid of Hitler.
Yeah, I know we're going kind of long here, so there's one more point I want to bring up. So there's a phrase that comes up twice in the movie. So the first time is when Rosie's still alive, and right after the explosion, so pretty early on in the movie, Rosie is trying to convince JoJo to go outside for the first time since the explosion and since he's left the hospital. And he doesn't want to go outside because he doesn't want people to see all of his scars on his face and everything. He says he's ugly like a monster. And he asks, "Is it dangerous out there?" And Rosie kind of just like looks at him, smirks, and says, "Extremely. Let's go."
Yeah.
And this happens again at the end of the movie. So
Yes.
after Elsa has agreed to go out, they've packed their stuff and they're on their way.
Thinking the Nazis have won.
Thinking the Nazis have won. They are ready to go out the door. And she says, "JoJo, is it dangerous out there?" And then he does the same thing. He smiles, he looks at her and says, "Extremely." And they step out of the house, and then she realizes that it's
over. Like
it's over.
The Allies have won.
And so I do want to point out, this actually goes back to the Narnia series again, when the youngest of the Pevensies asks, "Is he safe?" And the response is, "Of course he's not safe, but he is good."
Mm.
And so that's the same idea that Rosie's trying to say to her son. Is it safe outside? Absolutely not. But even though all this crap is going on, this world is still good. This life is still good. And in a way, although he's kind of a jerk with it because he hasn't told her that the war is over, JoJo's doing the same thing to Elsa, where her vision of the world is she's lost everyone.
Yeah.
She's about to go into a world full of people who are trying to kill her, where anyone who could have saved her has now lost, and she's stuck and on her own. She's going to die. And she asks, is it dangerous? Extremely.
Absolutely, yeah. And then she realizes it's still dangerous, but she realizes like she's free.
Yeah, and it's good. Like, and they walk outside.
What do we do now?
And they dance.
And she just starts dancing.
Yeah.
And then it closes, and there's a quote that comes up. And it just says, "Let everything happen to you. Beauty and terror. Just keep going. No feeling is final." And I want to close with this. The reason I said at the beginning this is our Thanksgiving episode, even though it's coming after Thanksgiving, but I know like in the past that we've coded Thanksgiving episodes, is because this isn't like a Thanksgiving movie, but the world is dangerous, as we've touched on in many episodes. But it's all good. And Thanksgiving even started with us coming and taking land of the other, the it. But everyone's people, and there's this thing where like, even now there's that joke where like Thanksgiving is a holiday where you're spending time eating a lot of food with people you hate. It's like a joke because it's your family.
Yeah.
People you're closest to. It's people it's sometimes hardest to get along with. This is a time where in the midst of everything, in the midst of the turmoil in the church, in the midst of the craziness I just shared about this past weekend, whether you knew about that or not, in the midst of this dangerous and hard world, and maybe this hardship for a lot of people during this time of the holidays, there's freedom and good in that. And this is that time to really just like, I know it's cheesy to say to be thankful for that, but maybe just to be aware of it.
Find the good.
Yeah. And I already have a challenge, but yeah, just find a good. Do you have anything to add to like this as like that kind of?
No, I think that's exactly it. And as far as that closing quote, it was, "Let everything happen to you, beauty and terror." And that's not saying just let it happen. Just like allow whatever's going to happen to you.
I think it falls with a third part.
Right. It's just keep going.
Yeah.
So beauty and terror. So it's saying let everything happen to you. Like, yes, these things are going to happen. There's going to be great beauty in life. There's also going to be great terror in life. But no matter what happens, keep going, because nothing is final. And that's especially true for us as Christians, where people, there's this saying like nothing is final except for death. For us as Christians, that's not even true.
No, nothing is final except for life.
Okay, I see where you're going. Yeah. I was like, yeah, okay.
Not on earth, though.
Oh, got him. Yeah, so let everything happen to you. Realize that there's going to be beauty. There's going to be terror. Just keep going. Nothing is final. Find those blessings. Find that good, because it exists.
Yeah. So that could be one challenge, just to sit with where you are lately, to sit with what you've seen in the world that seems dangerous and scary and ugly, and to find the good. But my real challenge, it's going to be after Thanksgiving, so it's coming out on Saturday. Real challenge is finding one day this week. One day. It could be 5 minutes, it could be as long as you want. It could be with people, it could be by yourself, it could be in the shower. To turn on some music and just dance.
Yes, I like this.
You know, sometimes we say just drop everything and just be, and we think that has to be spiritual. But just dance.
Just dance.
In your room. I don't know if you have to clean. Sometimes when I'm cleaning, I love just putting on jams and just dancing while doing the dishes. But just dance to where like you're not thinking about what you have to do the next day. You're not thinking about the presents you haven't bought yet for Christmas. You're not
just
thinking
dance.
about it. You're just dancing.
If you need recommendations, reach out to us. I have some great dance songs.
Yeah.
I have a challenge as well.
Go ahead.
So my challenge is, just like Rosie stood up in the midst of the chaos and the evil, even at the cost of her own life, we have it pretty stinking easy as Americans, and most of our listeners are in Western countries, Europe and Canada for the most part. We don't have it that hard. Let's be honest. I think a lot of times we say like, oh, it's so hard to be blank in the 21st century. It's not. My challenge for you is to go out there and find a way to serve someone and actually do it. Maybe it's as simple as just finding a local food bank and helping there. Maybe it's you find someone on the street and, I don't know, you go to the nearest shop and you buy them something to eat for the day. I don't know. Whatever it is, go out and serve. Especially during the holidays, there's people who need it more than ever. There's people who are going to be stuck outside in freezing weather in the next couple months, and they need blankets and clothes. Be Christ to them. That's my challenge. Do you have any shout-outs?
Well, Lizzie would be one for sure. I shouted him out last week, but all the men in my wedding, David and Annalisa again, just for this beautiful sacrament. Yeah,
and all the guys who are coming in for that too, and girls. They're actually going to be hanging out here before the wedding because David lives so far away. And I actually wanted to give a shout out to someone who we should have given a shout out to a couple weeks ago. So a friend of mine from the Pines actually reached out to us via email. I don't know if you ever saw it because I responded to it. I did. So his name is Bernard, camp name Nard Dog. Yeah. So he reached out to us and said that he started listening to the podcast a few weeks ago and is just going through the early episodes. So when he reached out, he was on episode 7. So like super early.
Yeah.
And
he doesn't even know who I am.
No. And that was the thing. When he addressed the email, it was to myself and Steve.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, first off, let me clarify. But we also have this third guy. His name's Gordon. So you might want to check him out too. So yeah, shout out to him. He gave us some awesome feedback and just gave us a lot of love and told us about how he's using some of the stuff that we've talked about on the show. Specifically, it was actually the scapegoating episode is the one that really touched him.
Hey,
and he said he's using that in his own job. He's a teacher for, I think it was a low income school.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So it's super cool to just hear how he's using that kind of stuff in his life. If anything from this show has affected you, please let us know. Like, we want to hear these things, and it's just so cool to actually hear that's affecting your life.
It's just a real witness to this.
Yeah, for sure.
Awesome. Well, otherwise, like we said, you can find us on not Instagram. You can't find us there. You can try.
You can find us on Twitter at On The Adventure 2, Facebook, The Christ and Culture, YouTube, The Christ and Culture, or our website, thechristandculture.com. You can find all that stuff in the links below.
Yes. Otherwise, thank you guys so much for joining us on the adventure. Happy holidays, Christmas, Thanksgiving,
Advent.
Happy
it's not
Advent.
Christmas yet.
Oh,
Christmas
no,
doesn't start yet.
People can say it.
It's all right. Well, okay. I'll allow it. Just this once.
And we'll see you guys next time.
Bye. Oh, wait, I'm recording.